We've watched the luxury sedan market evolve over time, where back in the 80s to about the early 2000s, you had the great rivalries between BMW, Mercedes Benz, and Audi. But today in 2024, mid-sized luxury sedans, or just sedans in general, are becoming a bit obsolete. They're no longer the go-to option for a lot of Americans, as they want crossovers. Instead of a Mercedes Benz E-Class, they want a GLE or a BMW X5 or Audi Q7. But today, it's not just about the performance that you're going to get with these cars. It's now the technology. And when we take a look at the press release that Mercedes-Benz has given us for this generation E-Class, it's a long list of technology features that this car now has, and they don't really talk about the mechanical aspects that makes up this new generation. But today in this video, we're going to do the typical walkthrough of this vehicle. We're going to take a look at the exterior, the interior, take it out for a test drive, and see how it compares to the BMW 5 Series, and also to see if at around $90,000, a well-equipped E-Class is the best car you can buy in this market, but also possibly resembles a full-size S-Class. Now, before we get in this video, I'd like to thank Mercedes Benz of Westwood in Westwood, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Mercedes-Benz inventory. Also, before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. Traditionally, the E-Class was always the proper choice in the sedan lineup for Mercedes-Benz, as its refinement, features, size, and performance was often better than the C-Class and more affordable than the S-Class. While the distinctions between what the E-Class gave you compared to the flagship in the lineup became immediately noticeable when getting behind the wheel, the lines have been blurred in 2024, as you could argue that Mercedes-Benz held back no punches to set a new standard in the mid-size luxury segment. Even with fellow German brands having competitive and formidable offerings in this market, it's the E-Class that could make quite the statement this year for a luxury sedan. Starting off with pricing, the Mercedes Benz E350 for 2024 comes in at just under $65,000, with our model being well equipped with close to $25,000 worth of options, as this E-Class is the pinnacle trim. Unlike their Bavarian rival with the BMW 5 Series, Mercedes-Benz, at least outwardly, has retained a sense of continuity between the different generations, where even for a technologically advanced sedan compared to its predecessor, it's most certainly recognizable for returning shoppers. The same goes for the exterior dimensions, where the E-Class has only grown by an inch, leaving most of the significant changes to the switch over to the MRA2 platform, but also the technology that's now found inside this sedan. However, Mercedes' decision-making for the look of their 6th generation E-Class unintentionally has sparked more intrigue than initially intended, after the G60 BMW 5 Series garnered quite a bit of controversy. Despite the E-Class's front fascia being inspired by the EQ product line, where the grille now connects with the headlight housings, fundamentally it takes the same design elements as the prior generation, but with a modern twist. The combination of chrome and gloss black accents adds to a striking appearance, even with the rounder front end. The sharp body lines on the hood brings a sense of sportiness even in E350 form, and best of all, whether you're a Mercedes-Benz purist and enthusiast or not, you can't help but appreciate Mercedes' willingness to go cutting edge without revolutionizing and tainting a design that's been well received the last decade. Moving over to the side profile, our model is sitting on the optional 19-inch AMG twin 5-spoke wheels with black accents, adding a nice color contrast on this E350. Regardless of the tire sizes available, it will all boil down to whether you opt for the air suspension and rear axle steering, as both completely transform this luxury sedan's demeanor, where it does resemble an S-Class to a certain degree, but also dynamically speaking, becomes agile when cornering and feels more sporty than a mid-size sedan in this market should. On our model, we have power-folding gloss black side mirrors with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. Then as we make our way around to the back, what will immediately grab your attention is the Mercedes Benz emblem in the taillights, which this alone is a classy touch for a car that isn't a flagship model. While some may disagree, it's the final third that truly resembles the S-Class, with the body lines and wide C-pillars, exuding a sense of sophistication rather than appearing aggressive with a boisterous design. As with most Mercedes-Benz products, there'll be contrasting accents for the rear diffuser and chrome exhaust cutouts that once again add a nice touch. While Mercedes may have played it safe for this generation, it was the right call in a market that typically embraces tradition. Under the hood, the 350 is powered by a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, producing 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with a 9-speed automatic transmission. Bear in mind that for a car of this class, the Turbo 4 doesn't seem all that impressive on paper, and for some of you, you may want to go with the 450 and its inline 6. However, for a car designed and engineered specifically for luxury, buyers will find this powertrain to be more than adequate, especially now with the 48-volt mild hybrid system, which provides smoothness to the overall driving experience, specifically when accelerating off the line, but also even with the auto start-stop. For a mid-sized luxury sedan, straight-line speed isn't going to be the key indicator of whether it's a worthy adversary to the BMW 5 Series, as the E-Class's best-kept secret is the chassis and platform that we'll discuss in further detail during the test drive. With our model having Mercedes-Benz's 4MATIC all-wheel drive system, you should have no problem taking on winter road conditions, and when it pertains to fuel economy, you're looking at right around 24 miles per gallon in the city and 33 miles per gallon on the highway. Stepping inside, you're greeted by a space-age cabin that far exceeds what we see in regards to eye candy when compared to the Audi A6 and BMW 5 Series. With the Mercedes-Benz User Experience Superscreen, the front passenger also receives their own touchscreen, offering similar functionality to the main head unit. Since there's a lot to digest, we'll return to the infotainment systems with a more in-depth video in the near future. Since our model has the Nappa leather upholstery, both the driver and passenger will receive power adjustability, memory functionality, and heated and ventilated seats. Some have pointed out that the upholstery on less equipped E-Classes is firm, but if you demand an optimal amount of comfort, certainly spend a little extra for the more plush Nappa leather. In front of you will be a full digital gauge cluster that can be found across the Mercedes-Benz family. By using the buttons mounted on the steering wheel, you can adjust what you see from this screen, such as your navigation system, driver assistance features, and fuel economy statistics. Our model today also has an easy-to-read head-up display so that you can keep your eyes on the road rather than glancing down at the instrument panel. Then taking a look at the infotainment system, you'll have a massive 14.5-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility. If this head unit seems familiar, it's because you can find this user experience in the EQS. But to now have this setup inside an E-Class propels the sedan ahead of its closest competitors in regards to advanced technology. For user-friendliness, the embedded menus are relatively easy to navigate through, but the biggest learning curve will be the climate controls being found on the screen rather than having physical buttons on the dashboard. Since we didn't have internet connection, we were unable to check out the ability to watch YouTube videos or Disney+. But with everything getting more digital, the front passenger can be entertained on a longer drive. As expected for a nearly $90,000 luxury sedan, you'll have a top view camera, a 3D 360-degree view, and front and rear cameras with trajectory to help you park the E-Class. Beneath the screen will be a single row of buttons for the park assist features, drive mode selector, and volume control. Then for the center console, you'll find a wireless phone charging pad and 2 USB-C inputs. For the center storage compartment, you'll have enough room for smaller items. And then to round out the front seating area, above will be a panorama sunroof, which will let in a lot of natural light to the interior. Now moving on to the second row, we're going to start off on the passenger side. And the seat has been adjusted most of the way back. It's also somewhat on a recline. And I still have plenty of legroom here. Now, I do not have the official figures for the second row quite yet. I'll leave that on the screen because most likely Mercedes-Benz will provide that by the time this review goes live. But this feels a bit better than what we had with the last generation E-Class, but also this actually might be a bit more spacious than the new BMW 5 Series, because I don't feel cramped or claustrophobic. Of course, I'm not the tallest person out there, but I'm also genuinely impressed with the amount of headroom that you're going to have in this car, because of course with it being a sedan, it has a traditional sedan roofline. It's not going to be like a crossover, definitely not going to be like a GLE. But I think that if you're on the height of maybe 5'9", 5'10", possibly a bit higher than that, you won't be hitting your head on the headliner, which is pretty impressive. This car has, in a way, despite all the technology that's now placed on the dashboard, this kind of feels like a luxury sedan from the 90s. It has the same styling, has the same feeling that I have yet to come across in this market in the modern age. So I like that Mercedes-Benz is kind of going a bit old school and retro in regards to how they designed this car. And I think we're going to see a lot of that make its way for the cargo area as well in a few minutes. Then as we take a look at the center seat, you're going to have some great placements for your feet, but the center hump is very aggressive, almost Grand Tourer-like, and I wasn't going to go in that direction, and I don't want to say this is a Grand Tour like you're going to find in, say, a Porsche Panamera, but I think with the aggressive center hump, you're probably not going to be fitting in an average size adult in the center for this sedan. So most likely you're going to want to go with the GLE whenever that gets refreshed, because I would love to see this dashboard and interior in that SUV. But if you do have a smaller child sitting in the center seat, you could probably squeeze in 2 average-size adults on the outboard seats, making this car a 5-passenger vehicle overall. And then on the driver's side, the seat is adjusted to someone of my height, around 5'5", and I have plenty of legroom here where I can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the driving experience, but also, of course, with the Nappa leather upholstery, it's a very serene and comfortable experience being in the back here. So I think if you do have maybe family members or just friends tagging along with you on a longer drive, they're not going to be complaining at all. Then also back here on our model today, we do have rear sunshades, which is great to see, because if you're back here on your laptop, maybe your iPad or your smartphone, you don't want to have that sun gleaming down on you on a nice sunny day like today, but also it adds some privacy for your passengers in the back. Also back here, you do have 2 rear air vents to go along with 2 USB-C inputs. Also have heated outboard seats, which that button can be found on the door panel. And then to wrap up the second row seating area, you are going to receive a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Now making a way around to the back with the E-Class, you are going to receive a power trunk. And inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 19 cubic feet of room, which would be better than the BMW 5 Series. Now, this is fantastic because for a lot of vehicles in this market, they're not necessarily practical in the true sense of the word. You'd probably go with a GLE if you do have a family. But if you're somebody who wants to have a luxury sedan, you don't have your kids in the back anymore because they've gotten older, they've moved out, gone to college and all that, and you're looking to get back into a sedan, you're going to love this generation E-Class. There's so much space back here, and as you can tell, there is a decent sized box, which is your all-weather floor mats, which takes up a good portion of this cargo area. But I was able to fit all my camera gear on top of that box. That's 2 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod, and there's still enough room for some smaller items as well. So if you are going on a road trip with a family or significant other, you could probably fit 8 or 9 bags of luggage back here. This almost feels like an S-Class to a certain extent, and it almost has this retro 90s, early 2000s feel in regards to the interior space for this sedan. Then on the left side of the rear cargo area, it will have some netting for some smaller items, such as maybe a couple water bottles, car detailing equipment, or maybe even a first aid kit. But more impressive and really great to see for a sedan is that on both sides of the rear cargo area, you will have some quick release tabs that'll conveniently lower the second row seats, much like we see with crossovers. So if you are in a hurry, you don't have to manually lower those second row seats, which is something I really like to see. Then, of course, with those seats folded, you can store longer items. And again, even though this is not a crossover, it's not practical in a sense, you will be able to store all your items back here, I think, with relative ease. Then beneath the floor mat, you're not going to find a spare tire. But what you are going to find is another compartment for another bag or two. But also, if you are leaving this car unattended for a while, you can store your laptop, maybe your iPad, iPhones, or anything else that is irreplaceable. So again, for a sedan in this class and of this size, there's a lot of cargo space here to work with. And then once you're done loading up everything into your E-Class, as you would with a GLC or GLE, just press the button and the trunk will close automatically. So we're now behind the wheel of the all-new Mercedes Benz E-Class. Let's take this sedan out for a quick test drive to see how it performs, how it handles, how it drives, how it compares to the BMW 5 Series, and maybe even the Audi A6. Now, of course, we have the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine today that is aided by a mild hybrid system. And as I've talked about numerous times, having filmed Mercedes-Benz products, that the mild hybrid system has worked wonders with their vehicles, especially for this Turbo 4, but also, of course, the 9-speed automatic transmission. If we were looking at these cars maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the transmission was a bit sluggish, wasn't the most engaging, especially compared to the ZF 8-speed that's found in BMW products. But now in 2024, in the second half of this decade, Mercedes-Benz has definitely provided a lot of refinement to their vehicles, and it really shows and displays with the powertrain, but also the transmission. This is a very smooth and comfortable vehicle to be driving around, and also, even though a lot of people who are enthusiasts or people who are looking for more power might go with the E450, the base E-Class with this engine is still a great option, especially if you're just looking for luxury and an upscale driving experience. And that kind of leads me into this point where I feel like the E-Class for this generation is the anti-5 Series. What BMW did with the G60 should be considered a crime against humanity, not only when it comes to the design, but also I think even the technology, and just really going away from what BMW has embodied for the last 30 to 40 years. Mercedes-Benz, on the other hand, is taking a completely different approach to this market, where I feel like the E-Class is trying to be a bit more special and go in a direction that they've never really experimented before in the modern age. Because I think you could look at Mercedes-Benz back in the 80s and 90s as a completely different company compared to where they are today. But when I take a look at the interior, the 3 screens that I first interacted with when I had the EQS for a day, this is something that's very special. And also, yes, it does have this mini S-Class vibe to it. But at the same time, when you take a look at its styling, when you take a look at the interior quality, when you take a look at what this vehicle is providing at its price point, you could almost say, in a way, I'm not meaning this literally, that it could be put in the same category as a Porsche Panamera, and maybe even a modern interpretation of what a Maserati Quattroporte would have been if Maserati wanted to go in the mainstream direction with a Turbo 4. And the reason why I'm saying that is because this car is not necessarily the typical mid-size luxury sedan. It's not that stereotypical sedan where it's better than the C-Class or better than a BMW 3 Series, and then of course slotting just below the flagship in the lineup. But this actually feels like something a bit more special, not necessarily in regards to being a grand tour in any sense, but when you're looking at its main competitors, the E-Class has a lot more substance to it, has a lot more going on, where even from a technological aspect, this blows away what BMW offers with the 5 Series. It almost makes the 5 Series look outdated the minute it arrives at showrooms, which is something that I think when you look at what Germans have been doing for the past 20 to 25 years would seem almost impossible. And yet here we are with an E-Class that really feels expensive, considering that's around $90,000 for this model, but it no longer feels like the middle choice in the lineup anymore. While I am attempting to focus primarily on the driving experience today, because I will do a more in-depth video on the touchscreens, on the digital gauge cluster in the future, I just can't help but be drawn back to the dashboard that I'm seeing in front of me, because it's drawing so much attention. But also, it's not something you would expect walking into a car in this class and segment. So on this little back road here, I've put the E-Class in sport mode. And the rear axle steering does wonders. It handles the corners very well, even though we do not have a sports tuned suspension on this model. Oh, the handling is amazing. Also, of course, we have the air suspension as well, providing a lot of comfort as I glide over the imperfections in the road. Also, we do have noise-canceling glass, which once again emphasizes that the E-Class is luxury first, but it feels so dynamic and agile in the corners. It makes the E-Class feel a lot smaller than it really is. This kind of reminds me of the C43 I featured last year, which also had the rear axle steering. Oh, this is amazing. There's so much confidence here, and it's mostly because of the steering. It's not the suspension, because we don't have that stiffness and rigidity to the suspension necessarily with this being tuned for comfort. But wow, the steering is very active.
Unfortunately, active lane keeping assist can't be operated using voice control.
As you can tell, we do have the onboard assistant, which I do love with these Mercedes-Benz products. Now, since we are at a red light, might as well go over the interior layout, more so when it comes to the amount of vision you have here to work with behind the wheel of the E-Class. A-pillars are somewhat aggressive, so you might have some blind spots when you are approaching intersections or red lights. Then we take a look at your side mirrors. They are decently sized. I can see what's my blind spots. And then looking out back, we have the headrest in the way, which will play around with your rear vision, but I can see the vehicle directly behind me. Also, something too, we do have the rear sunshades, so you can block out the haters while you're driving your E-Class around town. But also, of course, it adds some privacy for your passengers in the back. Also, something too that I really like is the fact that the dashboard has some soft touch materials. It feels really well put together. And honestly, again, for a car at around $90,000, it feels the price point. And then, as I had mentioned earlier on in this video, Mercedes-Benz is putting a lot of emphasis on the technology for this generation, more so than the driving dynamics and what they've done mechanically. When you take a look at the press release, there's a couple paragraphs on what they've done mechanically to this car, and then the rest of like the 3 or 4 pages that you'll be scrolling through is all about the technology, all about the displays, and everything that comes along with this driving experience and ownership experience. And I think that right there is what makes Mercedes-Benz very special right now in 2024. As much as I would like to say that performance, that interior refinement, the softness of the seats and the softness of the cushioning when it comes to the suspension is what defines luxury, it's not. It's a technology. Everyone wants to have the most in-depth user interfaces and digital gauge clusters, and I think Mercedes-Benz has done a very good job of doing that. The only question now is that when you take a look at what we have here for this E-Class compared to E-Classes 15, 20 years ago, it's a far cry from what we had from its predecessors. That this is more than just that, oh, it's a more upscale C-Class or it's a trimmed down version of an S-Class. This is cutting edge stuff, but also you're driving in the 21st century now. This is no longer a car that resembles the 90s or the early 2000s. But for those who do love driving, for those who are hopping in from, say, an older E-Class, what are you going to experience when you are behind the wheel for the first time? And what I'm going to say here is that interior insulation is top-notch. I'd actually argue and say this is the quietest car I've driven so far in this segment and class. And that is certainly high praise, because a lot of vehicles right now, yes, are emphasizing that, but you're still going to hear the road noise, you're still going to feel the bumps and imperfections, you're still going to experience the outside world to some degree. But with the E-Class, I'm so isolated from the outside world, I don't care about anybody out there on the roads. But also with this car's sole purpose being luxury, I can't help but just relax and cruise around. I'm not feeling any sense of boldness to drive aggressive with this sedan. It's almost a very serene driving experience that has been lost in this market. Now, I know a lot of you are going to be wondering, if you have been a subscriber to this channel for a long time, knowing that I am a BMW fanboy, what my thoughts are on the E-Class compared to the 5 Series. And since I featured the 530i, that's a great comparison to the model we have here today. But I do think, though, that this particular E-Class is about $10,000 more expensive than the 530 I had featured about 4 or 5 months ago. But what I will say though, in regards to design, in regards to technology, maybe even in regards to driving experience and driving dynamics, I think the E-Class is better. I think it's a better car than the 5 Series. Now, of course, I want to wait until I can experience the E450 and I can experience the inline 6 with BMW. But if we're just going to compare base models for the E-Class, I'm going to have to say I think Mercedes-Benz is doing a better job right now. And that hurts for me to say. But when you take a look at this car's design, when you take a look at the interior, when you're spending $80,000 or $90,000, this is what you want. This is what you demand. And what BMW is offering just isn't there. This is such a pleasant test drive. Having been behind the wheel for about 20 minutes now, I have no complaints. Now, obviously, this isn't going to be a barnstormer. I'm not expecting it to be breaking speed records. I don't expect to be taking this out to Lime Rock or Watkins Glen on the track and having a blast in the corners. But as a daily driver, as a luxury sedan in 2024, this is so enjoyable in ways that has nothing to do with performance. Now, also, it could be because of the Nappa leather seats that we have on this model, because they're comfortable, they're plush, they're not aggressively bolstered, but they definitely do the job. And then, of course, with all the add-ons, since we do have the Pinnacle trim for today, it feels like an S-Class. Not necessarily in terms of size, but the interior, the comfort, the ride quality, even with this 4-cylinder engine, it's phenomenal. And that's another thing too I want to point out here, is that I think the leap from the E-Class to the S-Class isn't as substantial, isn't as large as the current 5 Series to the 7 Series. And I don't know if that's a negative or a positive. I don't know if that's really what Mercedes-Benz wants to hear. But I feel like that if you're somebody who isn't going to be spending over $100,000, you're definitely going to love your time with the E-Class. This is not going to be a mistake if you're like, oh, I wish I bought an S-Class. No, the E-Class is a great option and choice. So to wrap up this video, I got to be honest and straightforward here. I really wasn't sure what to expect with the E-Class today. Because with the technology, I'm thinking, oh no, Mercedes-Benz is prioritizing technology above everything else. And driving dynamics wise, I'm not expecting a huge significant difference compared to the last generation. But also, I'm not sure how the E-Class is going to stack up against the new 5 Series. And then, of course, the A6 and Genesis G80. But I'm actually really impressed with what this car is providing outside the technology. The performance, to be captivated by the handling and steering of a non-performance model goes a long way for me, because this is going to be a luxury experience. This is going to be a typical mid-size luxury sedan, but it doesn't drive like a typical mid-size luxury sedan. In fact, it feels sporty, it feels fun, it feels more than one-dimensional. And for a lot of vehicles in this market, and Mercedes-Benz has been known to do this in the past, they tend to go in the one-dimensional direction. This generation is completely different. Now, with the screens, with the technology, there's a lot to digest here. There is so much to go over with the infotainment system, with the digital gauge cluster, that I could be here for hours just going over everything. And it has this semblance, it has this feeling of being in the newer Porsche models. It has this feeling of being in a premium luxury sedan that's $200,000. It feels like an S-Class in here. And that right there is what makes this car such a game changer. Why you can't look at this as being just a bit better than the BMW 5 Series. As I talked about during the test drive, the leap from the E-Class to the S-Class isn't as large as the 5 Series to the 7 Series. And when you start looking at that, when you start playing around with the configurator, when you start looking at the price difference, you start wondering, you know, should I go with an S-Class when I can go with an E-Class? And what you have here with the E-Class and a well-equipped model at that, at around $80,000 to $90,000, you're getting a car that definitely plays its part, but feels the price point. A lot of vehicles, you look at the $90,000 price tag and you're like, I'm paying $90,000 for this? I should be getting a lot more. But even with the Turbo 4, I'm really not complaining. I think if you're an enthusiast who is power hungry, you're going to want to go with the inline 6. You're going to want to go with the E450. But with this model that was provided today from Mercedes Benz of Westwood, this is truly in a league of its own compared to the rivals. And I really want to experience the 450 now. I want to experience the 63. I want to know what this car can give me from a performance perspective. When you're giving me a sports tuned suspension, when you're giving me a better engine, what is this car going to feel like on the roadways? Now, of course, the BMW M5 is going to be a V8, so of course you're going to be comparing a V8 to an inline 6. But still, I can't help but feel that Mercedes-Benz has a really cool product here that is going to wow you, not only in regards to technology, but also performance as well. And the fact that I'm experiencing that on the lower end with a Turbo 4, to me just tells me that this platform is going to be very impressive in the long run. And I can't wait to experience this car once again in the future when higher trims come out, but also with the better powertrains. But honestly, after test driving this model today, experiencing it for a few hours, I would definitely recommend taking it out for a test drive, cross-shop it with the 5 Series. And you're going to be hearing this from a BMW fanboy. I think you're going to want to take a look at the E-Class a bit longer. I really do, because the 5 Series hurt my feelings. It really did back in, I think, October or November. It really left a sour taste in my mouth. And that's why I'm almost relieved that Mercedes-Benz didn't pull the same strings that BMW did. I'm relieved that Mercedes-Benz is at least giving me something that I can be excited about in regards to design, interior, even performance. And that is something that I was not expecting walking in. I'm thinking this is going to be like a BMW 5 Series, isn't it? No, absolutely not. It's something a bit more. And that's why I would say experience it, take it out for a test drive, check one out at your local dealer, because I think Mercedes-Benz has a great product here with this generation E-Class. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.